Hello friends, welcome to BSVtrainings.com. My name is Amit and we are continuing building our HR model. We already had 2 sessions about building HR model. In third session, we are going to talk about how to solve role-playing dimension. Okay. As always, we understand the business requirement and then we understand solution. So role-playing dimension conceptually you might have learned multiple times, but here I am going to show you live example. In our case, let's first go to the formal definition. A table with a multiple valid relationship between itself and another table is known as role-playing dimension. So one table, another table, joining with two-dimensional table, multiple keys. So you see employee ID, employee key, join over here with the manager key 1, manager key 2nd, and employee key. There are multiple relationship between employee key and manager key. Basically, it's a kind of poor data modeling which we are going to address in our reporting section. So we create 3 instances of employee manager dim, and I create 3 instances of it. One I join with employee key, join with employee key over here. Here manager key join with employee key. This is called manager instance, another alias name, and the third table is called 1 over manager, where employee key join with manager key number 2nd, which is not visible over here. It's a manager key 2nd. Okay. So in this example, the same table I've got 3 instances. One is employee, another one employee manager, and third one is 1 over manager. So let's do this live and see if you don't create multiple instances of your dimension, what exactly the problem is. Okay. So once again I pull all the metadata and build the complete model from the beginning. I import a metadata, my HR model. I'll be using OCI connection Oracle, my data source in Oracle, and I provide my credential, provide your credential. I'm going to bring dimension, table, keys and foreign keys. As we are building an HR model, I've given admin privileges to my HR model, but often you don't have it. In the first session, as I explained, we need to bring only the dimension pertaining to employee. Employee manager, employee position, employee recruitment, hiring, ranking, successor detail, and all the employee details will bring into this. However, this model consists of many other areas like finance, HR, sales, marketing. In addition to this, we also bring organization and time dimension. Okay. So this table, the list of dimension facts we have dimension facts and a couple of lookup tables we bring into our system. For now, I go with the default, all the default properties, and as we proceed further, we'll modify these properties as we need them. I'm going to import all the table. It takes few minutes. Perfect. So I got my model. Let's visualize this. Finish. And I'm going to visualize this. Right click, look at the physical diagram. Okay. The model looks pretty ugly, nasty, and pretty difficult to understand the whole model in one go. So what we do, let's focus onto the problem area. In the whole model, I'll be focusing onto the problem area. So first I join with the employee expense fact, and employee manager. This is the area where you need to pay attention, and I'll be selecting the whole model first, employee, time dimension, organization lookup. So actually whatever foreign keys I have in the fact table, the corresponding dimension I'm bringing into system. So I start with time dimension, account, time, employee, which is employee manager in this case, and account dimension I did not bring, I need to bring it that as well. Employee position and position lookup table, right? Organization lookup. This is my model. The one key which I don't have over here, account key, will bring it that as well. So let's focus on this model and see. I see there are a couple of disjoint. There are unjoined dimension and facts which we need to join it. So this is basically, this joining type is missing in my source system itself. We're going to join this when you build the model. Okay. Alright, so I'll create a new business model called HR model, and we're going to solve this problem. Okay. First, between fact table and employee manager dim, there are multiple relationship. There's one relationship is visible by employee key, but there are multiple relationship. So I'm going to explore this relationship. As we discussed, we create multiple instance of employee manager, multiple instance, which is called alias in OBIEE. Create alias. I call employee manager. Employee manager, it's an alias. Sorry, right click. Once again, create alias and name it employee manager. Okay, and I'll create. You can define a primary key for this alias. This primary key would be manager key 1, because I want to join with my fact table using different ID, and which is my primary key employee key 1, right? Okay, I create another instance of my employee dimension, employee manager dim, one more alias, and this call 1 over manager, employee 1 over manager. And again I create a key of it. I call manager key 2nd, and I join with employee key number 2nd, employee key 2nd. Okay, I got 2 instances. Let's visualize this. So I'll focus on employee fact table, employee manager, manager, employee manager, employee 1 over manager. Right click and look at the physical view of it. Perfect, this is what I wanted. Let's join it. So I'll keep the fact table in between and join with 3 instances. Employee, employee manager, employee 1 over manager, right? And the joining would be one to many from dimension to fact. So there's an option called create new join, drag and drop, define the joining criteria where employee manager key 1 join with employee key, right? Cardinality should be one to many in dimension to fact. Do the same thing with another alias name, 1 over manager, employee key 2nd, primary key it picks up automatically, and employee key, right? Again the cardinality from dimension to fact is one to many. Perfect, the model is ready. Now we apply test and ensure the model is correct. Okay, so I'll bring all the required dimension here. I'll bring all the required dimension in my business model. Okay, first I join, I apply 2 tests without alias and with alias, and we see the difference. Okay, we apply 2 tests. Okay. Test 1, I'll query without alias and see the problem, and then I apply second test using alias. We create 2 alias, employee manager, employee 1 over manager. Okay, let's quickly build the model. So employee fact, employee dimension, organization, employee position lookup. I'm going to select all the keys which are there in foreign key, and employee manager and 1 over manager. Right. In first case, employee manager, I'll drag and drop, put into my business model. In first case I am not going to use any alias, so I use HR model without alias, right? And I build a presentation layer, just drag and drop, no big thing I'm doing over here. I just right click and look at the business model to ensure that everything is correct. Click the business model. This perfect, this is my business model. So I have a dimension, fact, employee expense fact, we join with time, employee manager, organization and position, and I've got corresponding to for lookup table. Okay, let's test this model without alias and test this model. So under test 1 I need this information. I need employee, we have a measure over here called facts. employee expenses, employee expense total. I aggregate this total expenses, right? I like to see expenses pertaining to employee and pertaining to manager, right? I don't have multiple, I have only one column called employee name. Employee could be manager, employee could be one number manager. I have a column over here called employee name, which could be employee, employee manager, employee one over manager. Could be any one of them, depends upon context. So I need three query. I need employee total expenses, employee manager expenses, and employee one over manager expenses. One over manager expenses. This is I like to find out in both the cases, right? And we test our query. So alright, let's create a paintbrush, and I'm going to post the query over there. We apply test. Okay, let's query this. After save, I go to my presentation layer, refresh my view, and I create one sample query, HR model without alias. I create a basic query. I need an employee name, employee full name, employee manager name, employee name, employee is employee manager and one over manager both, and facts, total expenses, right? The first I'm joining with first instance employee name. So naturally it will be using employee key as a primary key, isn't it? I'll take a snapshot of this and then we compare over there. So first part of my testing where I'm joining employee expense and employee manager name. Okay, take a snapshot of this, put it over here, highlight the join where we want to pay attention, highlight this join, and I'll put a query over here, right? So process, I got the output. Now let's look at the query, which is more important. Administration, look at the query. I enable my log file, so you see the query over here. Perfect, you see the query over here. I copy this query, put beside this, and now we compare. Perfect. So this is what I want to highlight. The joining is done now based on employee key, right? Joining is done on employee key. This is exactly what I want to show you. When I join with alias, it should use employee manager key. This test is pass. Now I'm going to use a manager. I want manager expense, but I don't have any manager name. Employee is a manager, so I can never find a manager expense and one over manager expense. I don't have any column which talk about manager name, right? I have only employee name. There is no manager name. So in order to find manager expenses, I need to manipulate this model, right? What I do, I'll add these two alias name as well. I drag and drop and put this alias over here in a business model. Okay. I create a separate presentation layer, business model, and name it as HR model with alias. That was without alias, this is with alias, right? And I pull same model. I'm going to prepare employee fact, employee manager, time, organization lookup. I just add an alias. That's an additional thing I'm doing. Okay. Drag and drop and right click and look at your business model. Perfect. This is your business model. The area which I need to pay attention, I want you to pay attention to this. We'll see three instances of employee, employee manager, employee, and employee one over manager. Perfect. This is the area of our focus. right? Let's zoom in to have a better understanding. This is where I want to pay attention, right? So let's take a snapshot of this and I put it over here, right? If you want, you can put beside your another snapshot so that you can compare exactly the benefit of using two alias. This is your core model and this is your modified one. Okay, I'm not able to accommodate both of them together, so I'll just cut this, give little room, and place my another model over here. Once again, cut this piece and put it over here. Now we can compare well, at least relatively good. Okay. Now I got three instances: employee manager, 1 over manager, employee. Now let's find out employee expenses. In test 1 I passed this, but we failed to find out this. Failed. In this query with alias I'm going to do the same thing and we test it once again. First we find employee expense, employee manager expense, employee total manager, 1 over manager expense. Okay, perfect. Let's create a presentation layer, drag and drop and save it. Close it. Now test it. So I refresh my model once again. I refresh it. Refresh display, refresh metadata. Takes few more seconds. Create new analysis and test it. HR model with alias. Test it. So I test employee name and expenses. Employee name, employee expenses. That's employee expense. Okay, I have not aggregated this. A small thing you should do it. Aggregate your fact. Employee total expense. Right click. Apply aggregation rule as sum. Perfect. Otherwise system will consider this as an attribute if you don't apply aggregation. I aggregate this. I should refresh, reload and refresh it. So this should be my employee expense. First query pass, I got the output. Look at the query to ensure everything is correct. Okay, first query, employee expenses. So joining is based on employee. I'm going to keep over here. Basically render the same query. Okay, it ran the same query. My focus area is joining on employee key. Perfect, this is passed. Now we join on employee manager and employee 1 over manager and test our query. Okay, employee manager 1 over manager. So go back over here. The joining, this time I use another alias. I delete this one. I use employee manager. Employee manager name. Query. This time I use employee. I have taken employee manager. It's taking some time to process. I got the data, right? Let's look at the query. Look at this query. Perfect, I got this query. And this is what exactly I wanted to show you. This time joining is happening on, you can pause this video and see this part carefully. This time joining is based on employee key. See this part. right? If you see, previously we were joining on employee key, this time it is joining based on manager key, because I use join with manager. Okay. And last test we apply, second test is also passed, this test is passed. Third test, I join with 1 over manager, and see this. So I remove this employee name from employee manager alias, I use 1 over manager. And test it. I hope I use 1 over manager. Yes, 1 over manager, and test it. I got the output. Data will also be different. We look at the query path. I'm more interested to look at the query in the beginning, and then we do data level testing. Perfect. This time it joined on employee key number second. This is the moral of the story. I use another join. Maybe I cannot accommodate the whole. I try to accommodate over here. Another query. This is my another query. We're short of space. I just change the font size little smaller. Perfect. Now I can highlight the area. This is the moral of the story of complete dimension modeling. So when I use 3 alias, this one is employee, take query, this one is employee manager query, and this is employee 1 over manager query. The query remains same, but joining criteria changes, and therefore output changes inevitably. 1 over manager. That's it for today. We have close to 30 more sessions about building HR model, and we'll also build a reporting. So subscribe to our YouTube video and see more advanced and detailed dimension modeling and report building in real world scenario. Thanks for joining today's session, and have a great day ahead.